Today we continue our lesson in chapter 3. We are in section 2 and we are doing lesson 4, the Ottoman Empire. Go ahead, go to our Loda USD website, or you can use the textbook, and from there Clever, and from Clever Cengage Learning. Once you are logged in, go to unit 1 and from there chapter 3, and from there section 2, lesson 4, the Ottoman Empire, pages 76 to 77. Now let's take a look at the review and assess questions. For number 1, reading check. What were some of the major achievements of Suleiman I? And number 2, make inferences. How did the Ottoman Empire benefit from practicing religious tolerance? And for number 3, interpret maps. Along what major seas did the Ottoman Empire extend? So lock these questions in mind as we continue with our lessons. The objective of this lesson is to explain how a Muslim state known as the Ottoman Empire became the largest empire in the world. And the essential question is, what major contributions did Muslim leaders and scholars make to world civilization? Now, before we dig deeper into the details of this lesson, let's take a look at this interview of this National Geographic resource speaker, Anna Secor.
University of Kentucky in Lexington, Kentucky. I'm also the Haja Razia Sharif Sheikh Professor of Islamic Studies here.
So, Anna, what made you want to be a geographer?
And I was working in Boston, and I met somebody who was a geographer. I'd never met a geographer before, but this geographer spent half of every year in India, and he was studying what he called terrains of resistance. I didn't know quite what that meant, but it sounded really interesting. I thought, I want that guy's job.
Anna, tell us a little bit about your work in Turkey.
Turkey is a fascinating place. It is so vibrant, so dynamic. In some ways, it feels like all the currents of contemporary politics converge there. I've been working in Turkey since, 1996, and my work has spanned a bunch of different topics. When I first started working there, I was really interested in the role of women in Islamic political parties. Since that first research, which was my dissertation research, I've gone on to look at ethnic conflict in Turkey, as well as questions of Islam and lifestyle. For example, my collaborator Banu Gökaraksel and I did a big project on veiling and fashion in Turkey. We were really interested in how pious Muslim women were wearing the latest styles, and at the same time, how these styles had to be modest. We thought that it was an interesting problem, in a way, of how to combine modesty and fashion.
So what is the role of the history of Islamic civilization in the work that you do looking at the modern Middle East and particularly the political issues that we see in the Middle East today? Can you tell us a little bit about the influence of Ottoman history on modern politics in Turkey?
Ottoman history is having a renewed influence on modern politics in Turkey because the current government, and they have really re-envisioned Turkey as heir to the Ottoman Empire, while previously Turkey had rather distanced itself from the Ottoman Empire, which in its last days was corrupt and falling apart, basically. So when Turkey became a republic in 1923, people didn't really want to celebrate that Ottoman Empire, but rather to move away from it and seek something new. Today, the Justice and Development Party is interested in renewing this idea of the Ottoman Empire and renewing Turkey's role in the region, not just the Middle East, but also in Central Asia. So I do think that Turkey has a resurgent interest in its own Ottoman heritage. For example, the Turkish president has supported an educational reform which would include Ottoman as a language in the public schools in Turkey. He argues that this would help contemporary Turks connect with the past because what with the change of the language and of the script when Turkey became a republic in 1923, contemporary Turks can't read Ottoman.
What fact about you would surprise people?
Well, I have friends who think that it's very brave of me to travel all over the Middle East, and I often do it by myself. But I think maybe a surprising fact is that I was such a timid child that I didn't even learn how to ride a bike until I was 20 years old.
Anna, what's your proudest moment so far?
When I teach classes at the University of Kentucky, I often have a lot of veterans, a lot of U.S. veterans in my class. There was one time I was teaching about Iraq, and I was teaching about the Iraq War, and I put up a slide on the Battle of Fallujah, and I asked, who here was there in the Battle of Fallujah? And a few hands went up. At the end of class, a couple of the veterans came up to me, and they said that it was incredible to see what they had lived through up there as a PowerPoint slide, and it was part of history, and it was part of the story that I was teaching. And for them, I think it made them understand their place in world history in a new way.
Along those lines, Anna, what does it mean to you to be a citizen of the world or a global citizen?
I think one of the hardest things is to understand that the values that you hold most dear are not necessarily the values that other people hold, and that doesn't make them bad people. It makes them people with a different culture. I think it's really important for students today to study world history because it is so hard to understand contemporary events without a good understanding of world history. So this is important, I think, for people to understand when they see all the conflict that's happening there, to understand that the roots of this conflict are not in yesterday's policy decision, but they actually go much further back.
The Ottoman Empire probably is the greatest Muslim empire. And in history, it is probably one of the mightiest, longest lasting dynasties in world history. So, this Islamic run superpower ruled large areas of the Middle East, Eastern Europe, and North Africa for more than 600 years. The chief leader, known as the Sultan, was given absolute religious and political authority over his people. Now, while many Western Europeans, which are predominantly run by Christian leaders, generally view them as a threat, many historians regard the Ottoman Empire as a source of great regional stability and security. It is also a place where there is a great achievements in the arts, science, religion, and culture. Now, who is Suleiman? He became Sultan of the Ottoman Empire after serving as a provincial governor under his grandfather Bayezid II and his father Salim I in 1512 to 20. He immediately began leading campaigns against the Christians and taking Belgrade and Rhodes in 1522 to 23. At the Battle of Mohacs, he broke military strength of Hungary, and in 1529 he laid siege to Vienna but failed to capture it. Further campaigns in Hungary left the region divided between the Habsburg and Ottoman dominated areas. Iraq and eastern Anatolia were captured during his first campaign against the Persian Safavid dynasty, which is another Muslim empire. His second brought conquest to southern Anatolia around Lake Van, but his third was unsuccessful. His navy under Barbarossa controlled the Mediterranean Sea. He built mosques, bridges, and aqueducts and surrounded himself with great poets and legal scholars. His reign is considered a high point of Ottoman civilization. Bottom line, he is a great conqueror and definitely a great leader. One of the key characteristics of this Ottoman Empire is that they practice religious tolerance. So most scholars agree that the Ottoman Turk rulers were tolerant of other religions. In other words, they allowed them to exist and to practice their faith. Those who weren't Muslim were categorized by the millet system, a community structure that gave minority groups a limited amount of power to control their own affairs while still under Ottoman rule. Now let's take a look at the map of the Ottoman Empire. So these are all the countries that they ruled, and specifically, the Ottoman Empire extended along the Black Sea, the Adriatic Sea, and the Mediterranean and Persian Gulf, as far as the Red Sea. Now, why is it important to mention all those bodies of water? Because it is far more difficult to govern different lands that are on different areas of different bodies of water than just one massive piece of land. In other words, this is just a proof of their ability to govern and run a massive land area across different bodies of water. And by implication, this suggests that they rule different types of people with their religion and culture in general. So it takes a lot of skills and tolerance to rule this variety of people or diverse group of people. So to summarize, Suleiman ruled the largest empire in the world, the Ottoman Empire, in the 1500s. He led a powerful navy and a large, well-equipped army. He conquered lands in northern Africa and eastern Europe. He was also a poet, a goldsmith, and a generous patron of the arts, or supporter of the arts. His rule inspired a cultural era that made Istanbul the artistic center of the Muslim lands. He built magnificent mosques or place of worship for the Muslims and palaces as well. The Ottoman Empire's religious tolerance helped reduce internal conflict. In return for enjoying religious and cultural freedom, Jews and Christians paid a tax and were loyal to the state. Their leaders worked with the Ottoman government to ensure positive relations. These communities prospered. So there's our lesson for today, the Ottoman Empire. Please do the review and assess questions. Thank you.